Hey guys, tonight we're getting our hands metaphorically dirty in the most divinely mundane way possible. Fixing a holy pottery wheel. Imagine this. You're squatting in the dust behind your tent, happily molding a lopsided camel figurine. Its hump looks suspiciously like a grumpy olive when a shadow stretches over your masterpiece. You glance up, squinting against the Mesopotamian sun, and see Elder Nahar, beard braided with ceremonial lapis beads, brow furrowed like a dried-up riverbed. He points a bony finger at your clay-stained tunic. You, yes you, the one whose best water jug cracked after 3 uses, are summoned to repair the tabernacle's sacred potter's wheel. Your thumb sinks clean through the camel's back. Me, the person who once tried to patch a cooking pot with fig sap and called it glaze? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, whisper your city and current time in the comments. I love imagining where in the world these stories land. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Elder Nahar's sandals crunch on the gravel. The righteous spinner of Bezalel, he intones, voice drier than last season's dates, has developed an imbalance. He pauses, letting the gravity sink in deeper than your doomed camel's thumb hole. During the consecration of the incense braziers, a most inauspicious wobble. You stare at the clay under your fingernails, gritty, ordinary, profane. The tabernacle's wheel isn't just a tool. It's the axle upon which spin the bowls for holy anointing oil, the cups for libations, the very vessels meant to hold fragments of the divine presence. Its clay is mixed with water from Miriam's well, its oak axle carved from the grove near Abraham's altar. And it wobbles. You picture it. Bezalel, master craftsman of the heavens' blueprints, frowning as a chalice meant for the altar of incense emerges slightly lopsided. A collective gasp from the Levites. The whispered terror, an omen, the practical terror. Who fixes the Creator's lathe? And somehow, through the complex celestial bureaucracy of camp gossip, Nahar's knobby finger landed on you. But my jugs leak, you blurt out, gesturing pathetically at your sad, deflated camel. Nahar's gaze sweeps over your studio, a cracked grinding stone, a bucket of murky water, a pile of clay flecked with goat hair. Humility is noted, he says, completely missing your point. Report at dawn. Bring your own smoothing stone. And he adds, eyeing your thumbhole camel with a flicker of pity, perhaps practice on something less theological first. He strides off, his robe kicking up little puffs of dust that settle on your abandoned masterpiece. The camp buzzes around you, children chasing chickens, women grinding grain, the rhythmic thump-thump of bread dough being slapped. Normal life. Yet your world has tilted. You poke the ruined camel. Its single, accusing eye, a pushed-in lentil, stares back. You think of the sacred wheel, spun by prophets, balanced by angels probably, now entrusted to the hands that made this. You pick up a lump of raw clay. It's cool, yielding, utterly silent. You squeeze. It oozes through your fingers like thick, earthy cream. The wheel needs this stuff, but purified, blessed, perfect. Your lump has a pebble in it. A fly lands on the camel's hump olive. You shoo it away. Dawn. You'll need to find your least chipped smoothing stone. Dig out the reed stylus you use for drawing smiley faces on children's bowls. Mentally prepare to touch the apparatus that shapes holiness. Your stomach knots. Maybe you could develop sudden, highly contagious leprosy, but then you remember the flicker in Nahar's eyes when he said Bezalel awaits. Not judgment, not even hope, desperation. The God who shaped Adam from dust needs your hands to steady the wheel that shapes his vessels. You look at your clay-smeared palms. They suddenly feel borrowed. Outside your tent, the setting sun paints the sky in streaks of ochre and burnt sienna, colors waiting to be captured in sacred glaze. For now, you wash your hands in the bucket. The water clouds instantly, swirling with the gritty evidence of your very human touch. The dawn air smells of damp wool and anxiety as you approach the tabernacle's craftsman quarter. Bezalel's apprentice, a boy with forearms thicker than tent poles, thrusts a chipped alabaster jar into your hands. Sacred clay, he grunts. Last batch. Don't waste it. The jar feels lighter than a chick's eye. Inside, a lump of clay the color of storm clouds glistens, smooth cold, smelling of deep earth and distant rain. Your relief lasts precisely 3 breaths. Then he adds, the only pit yielding this blend. He jerks his thumb eastward, drowned in last moon's flash flood, buried under 10 cubits of Euphrates tantrum. The jar suddenly weighs like a tombstone. You stare at the pit's supposed location, where sacred silt should be. A small lake winks mockingly under the rising sun. Reeds choke its edges. A stranded fish flaps futilely in the mud. Elder Naha's words echo. Asterisk. The wheel must spin for the new moon consecration. Asterisk 4 days. The pit isn't just flooded. It's transformed into a swampy grave for your only hope. You crouch, dipping a finger into the murky water. It's shockingly cold. A frog glares at you from a floating log, its throat pulsing as if chanting too late, too late. Panic flutters like a trapped bird in your ribs. Bezalel's clay isn't ordinary dirt. It's terra sancta, silt from the original Eden riverbed, or so the lore goes, blessed by 7 generations of high priests, sieved through linen finer than bridal veils. Your own clay? Lumpy stuff dug from behind the goat pen, usually hosting a vibrant ecosystem of pebbles and beetle larvae. Using it on the holy wheel would be like patching Solomon's crown with donkey hide. You spot old man Lamech nearby, mending a fish net with hands gnarled like olive roots. The pit, you call, desperation cracking your voice. Is it truly gone? Lamech spits date pulp into the water. Gone? Nah, just shy. He points a bony finger at the lake center. Down there, sleeping with the catfish and Pharaoh's regrets. He chuckles, a sound like stones in a tin cup. Tried diving for a souvenir yesterday. Waters colder than Leviathan's heart. And mud thicker than Zipporah's lentil stew. A reckless idea sparks. What if you dived? Just a quick plunge. Grab a handful of blessed muck? You eye the water. The frog blinks. Don't be an idiot, it seems to say. You imagine surfacing, triumphant, clutching divine sludge, only for Bezalel to point out a snail shell embedded in it, rendering it ceremonially unclean. Or worse, getting your foot sucked into the primordial ooze, becoming a permanent, embarrassing fixture of the flooded pit. Here lies the fool who dove for dirt. As if reading your thoughts, Lamech adds, lost my best sandal in that muck last flood season. Tried retrieving it with a shepherd's crook. Pulled up someone else's sandal from the time of Cain. He gestures to his bare, calloused foot, still waiting for a match. Deflated, you stare at the alabaster jar's meager contents. Enough clay, maybe, to patch a small crack. Not rebuild an axle bearing worn thin by centuries of sacred spinning. The sun climbs, warming your back, but not the chill in your gut. The tabernacle's wheel needs perfection. All you have is a jar of yesterday's holiness and a lake full of inaccessible miracle mud. The frog croaks again. Too late. You fling a pebble at it. It plops into the water with a hollow glug, vanishing without a ripple. Just like your hopes. The flooded clay pit mocks you like a giant, muddy, under the harsh sun. Despair tastes like grit between your teeth. You trudge along the Euphrates' reedy fringe, kicking pebbles, the precious alabaster jar of dwindling holy clay a lead weight in your arms. 4 days. The rhythm of the phrase pounds in your head. Asterisk 4 days. Wheel wobble. Consecration. Doom. Asterisk you nearly trip over a gnarled root disguised as driftwood. Stumbling, you curse, not the root, but the impossible task. Then you see him. Old man Lamech isn't fishing. He's just sitting, perched on a sun-warmed boulder, his bare feet dangling inches above the sluggish brown water, eyes half closed, face tilted towards the sky like a desert tortoise soaking up warmth. A half-eaten fig rests forgotten in his lap. You hesitate. Bothering the camp's oldest soul with your pottery panic feels irreverent. But the weight of the jar, the weight of the wobble, pushes you forward. Lamech, you call voice raspy. The clay, the pit any other source? Anywhere. One milky eye cracks open, swiveling towards you with glacial slowness. He doesn't speak for a long moment, just observes you clutching the jar like a newborn chick, your tunic smeared with despair and river mud. He takes a slow, deliberate bite of his fig, chewing with thoughtful intensity. The silence stretches, filled only by the river's lazy gurgle and the buzz of flies. You shift your weight, the alabaster jar slick with sweat in your grip. Finally, he swallows. Points a knobby, river-wrinkled finger not east, toward the drowned pit, but west upstream. Seen angels, he states matter-of-factly, like commenting on the weather. Years back. Big flood. Not this puddle. He gestures dismissively at the offending lake. Proper Euphrates fury. Swept away 3 goats and Eliezer's best rug. He takes another bite of figure. After the waters, dropped footprints. You blink. Footprints. The word feels absurd. A child's tale interrupting your adult catastrophe. Go prince, surely, or camel? Lamech fixes you with his good eye, the one still holding a spark of sharpness. Goats, he scoffs, don't leave prints shaped like wings. He traces a complex pattern in the air with his fig-sticky finger, a central depression, then feathery splayed marks radiating outwards. In the mud, fresh silt, right over there. He jabs his finger emphatically towards a bend in the river, half a mile upstream. Clay there. He taps the side of his head. Remembers. You stare at the spot he indicated. It looks like any other stretch of riverbank. Reeds, mud, a few scrubby tamarisk trees. No glowing light. No lingering scent of myrrh. Just earth. Yet, Lamech's voice holds no whimsy. It's the flat, weathered tone of someone reporting where he found good kindling. Angels. Wing prints. Clay that remembers. It sounds like the desperate fantasy of someone about to face Bezalel's disappointed gaze. But the pit is drowned. The jar is nearly empty. What choice is there but to chase winged footprints? Remembering Clay, you ask weakly, clutching your jar tighter, as if the dwindling sacred stuff inside might evaporate. What does that even mean? Lamech shrugs, a slow, tectonic movement of his bony shoulders. Means it holds the shape of things. Holds weight, different weight. He finishes his fig, tossing the stem into the river. It bobs, carried lazily downstream. Heavier, or lighter. Depends on the footprint, I suppose. He stands, groaning like old timber, brushing fig seeds from his worn tunic. Worth a look. Better than weeping over drowned mud. He ambles off towards the camp, leaving you alone with the river's murmur and the absurd, feathery ghost map now etched in your mind. You look at the alabaster jar. The precious clay within seems suddenly inadequate, like trying to repair a mountain with a pebble. Then you look upstream, toward the bend. Wing prints. Angels. Remembering clay. It sounds like madness. But maybe, just maybe, it sounds like the kind of holy madness that could steady a wobbling wheel. You take a deep breath, the scent of river mud and bruised reeds filling your lungs. The sun beats down. The choice is stark. Face Bezalel with failure, or chase a myth written in silt by beings with winged feet. You adjust your grip on the jar. Your sandals sink into the soft bank as you turn and start walking upstream, toward the bend, toward the impossible memory of feathers pressed into earth. The river gurgles beside you, whispering secrets only the clay remembers. The riverbank upstream is quieter, the Euphrates murmur softening to a hushed lullaby. Reeds stand taller here, their feathery heads nodding in the breeze like sleepy scribes. You push through a thicket of tamarisk, their silvery leaves brushing your arms like cool fingers. Lamech's description echoes, a bend, wing prints, clay that remembers. Your sandals sink into mud softer and darker than downstream silt. It feels receptive, like dough waiting to be kneaded. You scan the ground, heart thudding against your ribs. Pebbles, twigs, the delicate tracery of bird tracks. No wings, just mud. Glorious, ordinary, silent mud. The alabaster jar grows heavier in your hands, a sarcophagus for your fading hope. Asterisk, winged footprints. Angels. Asterisk, had the desert sun baked Lamech's brain like yesterday's bread? You crouch, defeated, fingers tracing a random swirl in the cool muck. It yields easily, cool, and slick. Utterly unremarkable. You scoop a handful, letting it ooze through your fingers. It's finer than the pit clay, almost velvety, leaving a faint, cool tingle on your skin. Nice mud. Good mud. But holy mud? You sigh, about to fling it back into the river's embrace, when the sun catches it. Deep within the handful of wet earth, tiny flecks ignite. Not gold, not mica. Points of cool, blue-white light, like captured starlight or chips of frozen moonbeam. They pulse faintly as you turn your hand, embedded in the rich, chocolate-brown clay. You freeze, breath caught. The mud in your palm isn't just dirt. It's a night sky in miniature, holding constellations you've never seen. You drop to your knees, heedless of the mud soaking your tunic. Gently, reverently, you push aside the surface layer near the water's edge. More glowing flecks appear, denser here, clustered in strange, swirling patterns. And then you see it. Not a footprint like a man's, nor a beast's. Pressed deep into the firm clay beneath the top silt is a single, perfect impression. A central, elongated oval depression, smooth and deep. Radiating from it, like rays from a stylized sun, are long, graceful grooves, 5 of them, tapering to delicate points. They curve slightly, suggesting not just pressure, but motion, like something powerful and impossibly light had landed here, pushing off again in a single fluid movement. A footprint sculpted by weight and wind, a wingstroke frozen in earth. You trace the grooves with a trembling fingertip. The clay here is cooler, denser than the surrounding silt. The blue-white flecks are concentrated along the ridges of the impression, glowing with a soft, persistent light. It feels alive under your touch, not warm, but humming with a quiet energy, like the vibration of a plucked harp string fading into silence. This isn't just mud. It's earth that has held an echo of something celestial. Terra Sancta, not from Eden's river, but from the moment a divine messenger brushed the earth. The ethical dilemma lands like a thrown brick. Is this clay meant to be taken? Is harvesting the imprint of an angel akin to stealing starlight? Bezalel needs perfection. The wheel wobbles. The consecration looms. The drowned pit offers nothing but despair. This offers a miracle written in light and earth. But touching it feels profoundly intimate, almost sacrilegious. You imagined Bezalel's reaction. You repaired the Creator's lathe with stardust and wing prints. A dragonfly zips past, its iridescent wings catching the sun, a fleeting echo of the impression beneath your hand. The river murmurs its ancient song. The choice crystallizes, failure born of caution, or a leap of faith into the luminous unknown. You look down at the alabaster jar, its creamy surface mocking you with its emptiness. Then, back at the glowing clay, the silent testament to Lamech's improbable truth. Angels had been here, and they'd left behind the raw material for fixing heaven's pottery wheel. Taking a deep breath that smells of wet earth and something faintly electric. Ozone after a distant storm? You set the alabaster jar carefully aside. You select a sharp-edged shard of flint from the riverbank. Not a shovel, a scalpel. You kneel not as a thief, but as an archaeologist of the sacred. You begin with infinite care to excavate the earth around the wingprint, not touching the impression itself. You collect only the clay from the deep troughs beside it, rich with the glowing flecks, cool and humming in your hands. The footprint itself, the sacred signature, you leave undisturbed, a silent blessing pressed into the riverbank. You fill the jar not to the brim, but enough. The blue-white flecks swirl within the dark matrix, tiny constellations trapped in holy mud. It feels heavier than it should, heavier than clay, heavy with possibility, heavy with the unspoken prayer that this earth, touched by wings, will remember how to spin true. You seal the jar, the cool alabaster now cradling captured starlight and celestial memory. The undisturbed wing print glows softly in the deepening shade. You stand, jar held tight, mud drying stiff on your knees. The path back to the camp feels different, lighter, charged. You carry not just clay, but a fragment of a story written in light upon the earth, ready to be spun into the axis of the sacred. The wheel might wobble, but maybe, just maybe, it remembers how to fly. The angel-touched clay rests in its alabaster womb, humming faintly against your palm as you approach Bezalel's workshop. Inside, the sacred potters will squats on a cedar platform like a brooding, lopsided god. Its oak axle, worn smooth by generations of holy vessels, gleams dully under lamplight. Bezalel himself is bent over a diagram, celestial blueprints on papyrus, dense with geometric symbols that make your eyes cross. He glances up as you present the jar, his gaze sharp as a flint blade. "The replacement clay?" he asks, voice devoid of inflection. You nod, heart hammering against your ribs like a frantic sparrow. He gestures wordlessly to the wheel's massive stone flywheel. "Prepare it. The axle bearing must be recast." Now, the process is terrifyingly precise. Bezalel's apprentice, Eliab, forearms like knotted rope, guides your shaking hands. First, the old, cracked clay bearing must be chipped away, a sacrilege performed with tiny bronze chisels and held breath. Each fragment removed feels like prying a scale from Leviathan. The exposed axle end is scored, raw wood thirsty for new clay. Eliab mixes the angel clay with holy water from Miriam's well in a silver basin. As the dark, star-flecked mud meets the water, the blue-white specks flare briefly, pulsing like distant stars seen through desert haze. The mixture emits a low, resonant hum, vibrating the basin rim. Eliab pauses, eyes wide. Bezalel doesn't look up from his blueprints, but his stylus stops moving for a fraction of a second. You need the mixture. It's unlike any clay you've touched. Cool, yes, but yielding with an eerie willingness. It doesn't stick stubbornly to your fingers. It flows like heavy cream, holding perfect cohesion. The glowing flecks swirl within it, mapping unseen constellations. Eliab shows you how to apply it to the scored axle end, thick, even layers, pressed deep into the wood's thirsty grain with the flat of your thumb. Like sealing a covenant, he murmurs, his usual gruffness softened by awe. The clay accepts the pressure, molding itself flawlessly, leaving no air pockets, no cracks. It feels less like applying mud and more like coaxing liquid stone into place. Then comes the centering, the heart of the horror. The repaired axle end must be perfectly aligned before the clay sets. The wheel's massive stone flywheel is hoisted back onto the axle shaft. Eliab grips one side, you grip the other. Bezalel stands before it, eyes closed, one hand resting lightly on the flywheel's cool stone rim. "Spin it," he commands, his voice barely above a whisper. You heave. The stone groans, grudgingly turning. It wobbles violently, a drunken giant staggering on its axis. The uneven weight tugs at your arms, threatening to wrench your shoulders from their sockets. Faster. Bezalel snaps, eyes still shut. You push harder, muscles screaming. The wobble intensifies, shaking the entire platform. You picture chalices shattering, oil spilling, the high priest slipping on a holy puddle. Suddenly, Bezalel's hand slaps down on the spinning stone, not stopping it, but feeling its tremor. His eyes fly open, blazing. "There," he barks, pointing to a specific spot on the flywheel's edge. Wait. Off-center by the width of a gnat's eyelash. Eliab. Clay. A tiny lump of the star-flecked clay is thrust into your hand. Bezalel guides your fingers, pressing the clay onto the precise point he indicated on the flywheel's rim. Again. Spin. You heave. The wheel groans, turns. The wobble is still there, a sickening lurch. But less. Bezalel's hand is a seismograph on the stone. More. Opposite side. Higher. Another tiny lump. Pressed. Spin. Less wobble. Again and again. Tiny adjustments. Minute applications of the miraculous mud. Each correction is a whisper against the chaos, a star anchored to calm the spinning sky. You lose track of time. Sweat stings your eyes. Your arms tremble like reeds in a storm. But the wobble is fading. With each tiny lump of clay applied under Bezalel's impossible guidance, the spin grows smoother, truer. The frantic shudder becomes a gentle vibration, then a soft hum that matches the resonance, still singing from the clay on the axle. Finally, Bezalel holds up a hand. The wheel spins freely, almost silently. Its stone rim describes a perfect, unwavering circle in the lamplight. No tremor, no shudder, just pure, balanced rotation. Like the world on its first morning, like the spheres singing in harmony. Bezalel lets out a breath you didn't know he was holding. He looks at the wheel, then at the smear of star clay on your trembling fingers, then at the alabaster jar, now half empty. Good, he states. The single word weighted with more approval than 100 hymns. The clay remembers its purpose. He turns back to his blueprints, but you catch the faintest ghost of something like wonder on his face before the mask of concentration returns. You stare at the spinning wheel. The star flecks in the bearing clay glow softly where they meet the wood. The flywheel turns with serene, unhurried certainty. You suddenly understand the Genesis days not as commands, but as rotations. Light spun from dark, land spun from sea, life spun from dust. Each turn of the cosmic wheel a perfect, balanced act of centering chaos into creation. The wobble was just misplaced weight. The fix wasn't force, but finding the counterbalance. You touch the drying clay on the axle. It's cool, steady, humming the song of a universe spun true. The wheel is centered, and somewhere deep in your own chaotic soul, a tiny, off-kilter weight settles back into place. The repaired wheel spins with a silence that feels sacred. Its stone rim cuts a perfect, unwavering circle in the lamplight. The star-flecked clay at its core humming a soft, celestial counterpoint to the workshop's usual clatter. Pride warms your chest, sweeter than spiced wine. You've centered the axis of holiness. Bezalel's nod was your Sinai summit. Then the evening prayer call begins. Distant at first, a low murmur rolling through the camp like distant thunder. As the unified voices of the Levites rise, chanting the ancient words of Genesis 1, the wheel shudders. Not a wobble, a deliberate, unnerving lurch towards the northwest. You freeze, polishing rag hovering over the serene stone. Did I imagine that? The prayer swells. Asterisk Bereshit bara Elohim, asterisk in the beginning. God created. The deep, rhythmic chant vibrates through the packed earth floor, up the legs of the cedar platform, and into the spinning stone. As the sacred syllables roll, asterisk tohu wabohu asterisk, formless and void, the wheel shudders again. A distinct, stubborn jerk. Northwest, like a compass needle yearning for a forbidden pole. You press a hand against the flywheel's cool surface. It thrums under your palm, not with a smooth resonance of balance, but with a deep, discordant tremor that syncs perfectly with the chanting. It feels drawn, haunted. The prayer ends. The vibration fades. The wheel settles back into its perfect, silent spin. You stare, dumbfounded. Eliab enters, carrying a bundle of acacia wood shavings. Sounded good out there, he remarks, dumping the shavings. Wheel's singing sweet, eh? He gives it an affectionate pat. It purrs under his touch, flawless. You open your mouth, then shut it. The wheel only wobbles during prayers. It sounds like a joke a bored shepherd would tell. Determined to prove your sanity, you wait for the next prayer call. Midday, the Levites gather. The chant begins, a different psalm this time, praising the firmament. Asterisk Omer Yehovah, asterisk the Lord speaks, and there it is. Subtle at first, then undeniable. As the voices deepen, harmonizing on asterisk Yest Eretz Al Makona asterisk, he established the earth upon its foundation. The wheel develops a slow, insistent creep. Northwest, it doesn't wobble, it leans, like a reed bending towards a hidden current. You place a delicate, unfired libation cup rim on the spinning surface. Without the prayer's vibration, it sits centered. As the chant swells, the cup trembles, then begins a slow, determined migration towards the edge, pulled by the wheel's invisible tilt. You snatch it off just before disaster. Panic replaces pride. Bezalel arrives for his inspection. You stammer out the phenomenon, demonstrating with hesitant spins during a lull in camp noise. The wheel is perfection. Prayer, you insist, voice cracking. It only happens during the prayers. Bezalel's brow furrows. He places his own calloused hand on the flywheel. Show me. But the next prayer call is hours away. He waits, silent, radiating impatience like heat from a forge. The workshop feels stifling. You fidget. Eliab polishes bronze fittings, shooting you puzzled glances. Finally, the faint sound floats in. The afternoon blessing. Bezalel's hand tenses on the stone. The chant begins. Asterisk Baruch Ada Adonai. Asterisk Blessed are you, Lord. And the wheel shifts. A subtle but definite tug under Bezalel's palm. Northwest. His eyes narrow. He feels it. He sees it. The perfect spin warps, just fractionally, in time with the sacred syllables. He removes his hand slowly, staring at the humming clay core, then at the northwest wall of the tent, as if trying to see through the canvas to whatever lies beyond. The void remembers, he murmurs, his voice low and strange. Asterisk, asterisk, Genesis, asterisk, asterisk 1. Verse 2. Tohu wa bohu, the deep, the formless. He taps the axle near the star clay bearing. This clay, it touched the edge of things. It felt the pull. He looks at you, his gaze unsettlingly intense. Before the word called light, there was the hunger of the abyss. The prayer, it vibrates the deep places. And the deep. He gestures towards the persistent northwest drift. Asterisk tugs back, starred. The explanation lands like cold water. The angel clay wasn't just memory. It was a conduit to the primordial void that existed before God's first command. Every sacred chant vibrated that ancient emptiness. And the clay, touched by the edge of creation, felt it. The wheel wasn't broken. It was resonating with the echo of the unformed deep. Fixing it wasn't about balance anymore. It was about silencing the call of the void beneath the words of creation. Bezalel strokes his beard, studying the now serene wheel as the prayer chant fades outside. Find what counteracts the pull, he orders. Before the new moon, the deep must not touch the vessels. He walks out, leaving you alone with a spinning stone and the terrifying echo of Tohu wa Bohu humming in the clay, pulling always, relentlessly, towards the hungry northwest dark. The wheel's northwest drift haunts you. Bezalel's words, the void remembers, echo like cold water in your bones. You stare at the star-flecked clay bearing. It hums innocently now, the prayer chant faded, the wheel spinning true. But you know the hunger coiled within it, waiting for the next sacred syllable to tug it towards the formless dark. Counteract the pull, Bezalel ordered. But how do you anchor a spinning stone against the echo of pre-creation chaos? Despair tastes like dust. Then, rummaging through Bezalel's disorganized scrap bin for spare pegs, your fingers close around cold, unfamiliar metal. It's not a chisel, not an awl. It looks like a flattened rib. Bronze, ancient, its surface worn smooth as riverstone, curved slightly along its length. One end tapers to a delicate, blunt point. The other flares into a shallow, scalloped impression. It feels dense, purposeful, heavy with history. Eliab glances over. Oh, that, he grunts, dumping armfuls of acacia shavings nearby. Bezi's ancestor tool. Supposedly traced back to, well, him. Used it for texturing prototype vessels. Before we got proper stamps. He shrugs, gathering dust. Him. The word hangs in the air, charged. Adam, the first potter, shaped from dust, breathed into life. Did he shape dust too? Did he press patterns into the damp earth of Eden? The tool feels alive in your hand, vibrating faintly, not with celestial hum, but with a deep, resonant warmth. A primal memory of earth compacted between fingers, of form coaxed from formlessness. You run your thumb over the scalloped end. It fits the pad perfectly. You imagine pressing it into wet clay. What pattern would it leave? Scales? Bark? Or something else? An idea sparks, fragile as the first dawn light. The void pulls towards Tohu wa Bohu, the formless deep before the word. What counters formlessness? Form. Specificity. The intricate, deliberate patterns of creation. The ribs of Adam, shaped to cradle life. The curve of a leaf, the spiral of a shell, the whirl of a fingerprint, divine signatures pressed into matter. What if you imprinted the counterpole onto the wheel itself? Not just balance, but a declaration of form against the void's hunger? You grab a lump of ordinary practice clay, not the star-flecked holy stuff, just gritty, honest mud. You slam it onto a spare wool head, centering it roughly. Your heart pounds. You press the rib tool's scalloped end deep into the spinning clay near the outer edge. Not a random mark, a deliberate pattern, a single, continuous line, a spiral. The clay yields. The tool bites. The spiral emerges, clean, deep, purposeful. As the wheel spins, the groove becomes a whirling declaration. Asterisk here is shape. Here is order. Asterisk. You stop the wheel. The spiral sits there, a tiny, perfect defiance against the imagined void. You place a drop of water in its groove. As the wheel spins again, the water doesn't slosh randomly. It flows along the spiral path, tracing the intentional shape, held by the form you created. It doesn't flee to the edge. It dances within the bounds. Hope, fierce and sudden, floods you. You look at the humming, holy wheel, then at the rib tool, warm in your hand. Adam's tool, meant to texture prototypes. Maybe its deeper purpose was to texture reality itself against the encroaching void, to remind the clay of its true allegiance, not to the hungry dark, but to the intricate, beautiful forms born of the word. You approach the sacred wheel, the rib tool, grip tight. Bezalel is elsewhere, deciphering celestial blueprints. Eliab is sweeping, oblivious. This feels audacious, sacrilegious even. To mar the smooth stone flywheel, to imprint the first potter's signature onto the axis of holiness. But the void pulls, the consecration looms. Taking a breath that tastes of bronze dust and desperation, you press the scalloped end of the rib tool against the spinning flywheel's outer rim. Not gently, with conviction. The metal bites into the dense stone with a sharp, grating screech. Sparks fly, tiny stars against the workshop gloom. Eliab yelps, dropping his broom. What in Leviathan's name? You ignore him. You push, guiding the tool, not carving a random arc, but tracing a single deep, continuous spiral groove around the entire circumference. Screech, screech, screech. The sound is awful, a violation of the wheel's newfound silence. Stone dust puffs into the air. The spiral deepens, a relentless, carved declaration. Asterisk form, order, creation. Asterisk you pour all your focus, all your hope into the pressure. The rib tool warms in your grip, almost burning. Adam's tool, fighting Adam's dust's memory of the void. Finally, the ends meet. A complete spiral encircles the flywheel. You lift the tool. The groove is deep clean. Tiny flecks of stone glint within it. The wheel spins on, bearing its new scar. The humming from the star clay bearing seems softer, quieter. Or is that your imagination? The afternoon prayer call begins, distant, then swelling. Asterisk Yomer not Israel. Asterisk, let Israel say. You hold your breath, eyes fixed on the spinning spiral. The chant deepens. Asterisk Ki Lulam Chasto. Asterisk, for his mercy endures forever. The wheel shudders. A faint tremor, a hesitation. It starts its familiar, dreaded drift towards the northwest. Your heart plummets. Failure. Then, halfway through the drift, it catches. The spinning spiral groove seems to bite the air. The drift slows, stops. The wheel wobbles minutely, trapped between the void's pull and the spiral's stubborn insistence on its own carved path. It doesn't return perfectly center, but it doesn't flee to the edge. It holds. It fights. Eliab stares, open-mouthed. It stopped, he whispers, incredulous. You touch the carved spiral. The stone is warm where the tool bit. The groove feels like a trench dug against chaos. It didn't erase the void's pull. Adam's rib couldn't silence Genesis 1:2, but it gave the wheel a shape to cling to, a boundary against the formless tide, a reminder etched in stone. Asterisk, here be dragons? No, here be spirals. Here be form. Asterisk, the void tugs. The spiral holds. For now, in the trembling lamplight, with a prayer chant fading outside, that fragile equilibrium feels like victory carved in stone and ancient bronze. The spiral groove holds, a scarred trench against the void's tide. Prayer chants still tug the wheel northwest, but the carved form bites back, trapping the drift in a trembling equilibrium. Pride flickers, cautious. You've armored the axis of creation. Then the sun dips, painting the workshop in long, Sabbath-y shadows. Tools are cleaned, cloths draped over unfinished vessels. The sacred stillness of Shabbat descends. You cover the humming wheel with a fine linen cloth, its star-flecked clay pulsing gently beneath like a sleeping heartbeat. Rest well, you murmur, half to the wheel, half to the void it holds at bay. You leave, the silence of the workshop profound, absolute. Shabbat dawns, cool and hushed. No hammering, no chanting. Just the soft sigh of the wind through the tabernacle hangings and the distant bleat of contented goats. You spend the morning drowsing, savoring the stillness, the memory of the spiral's stubborn grip. After the simple noon meal, an itch starts. Not physical, a mental tickle. Asterisk, did the groove hold overnight? Is the clay humming softer? Asterisk, it's Shabbat. Strictly, unequivocally, no work. Not even glancing at a tool. But surely, looking isn't working? Just a peek. To soothe the itch, you slip through the quiet camp towards Bezalel's workshop. The linen-covered drapes undisturbed over the wheel. Relief washes over you. See, all is well. You turn to leave, conscience soothed. Then a sound, not loud, not dramatic, a soft, crystalline snick, like a frozen twig snapping underfoot on a silent morning. You freeze. Slowly, dread coiling in your gut, you turn back. A thin, jagged line has appeared in the linen cover. It starts near the center and races outwards toward the edge, clean and sharp. Your breath catches. You lift the corner of the linen, gently, reverently, as if uncovering a sleeping child. Beneath, the sacred flywheel lies cracked. Not a chip, not a fissure. A clean, terrible split running from the central axle, hole straight out to the carved spiral groove near the rim. It cleaves the stone cleanly in two, like Moses' staff striking the rock at Meribah, but silent, secret, and profoundly wrong. The crack passes directly through the star-flecked, clay bearing you'd painstakingly applied. The miraculous mud, touched by angel wings, is sundered. The humming is gone, utterly silent. The wheel isn't wobbling or drifting. It's broken, on Shabbat. Panic, cold and sharp, floods you. Who broke it? How? The workshop was locked. You scan the floor. No fallen tools. No signs of intrusion. Just dust motes dancing in a shaft of sunlight, illuminating the terrible fracture. Did the void pull too hard in the silence? Did the star clay, strained by the constant cosmic tug-of-war, finally snap under the pressure of perfect rest? Or was this divine censure? Punishment for daring to carve Adam's defiance onto the holy mechanism? For looking on Shabbat? You stare at the sundered stone, the split clay. The crack seems to pulse in the stillness, a black mouth mocking your efforts. Bezalel's warning echoes. Asterisk, the deep must not touch the vessels. Asterisk, well, the deep hadn't just touched it. It had cracked the vessel of the vessel maker wide open. And it was Shabbat. Repair was unthinkable. Desecration upon desecration. The silence of the workshop presses in, heavy and accusing. Every dust mote feels like a watching eye. The split will lies like a corpse on the cedar platform. You sink onto a nearby stool, your legs refusing to hold you. What now? Confess to Bezalel after Shabbat? Admit you not only used forbidden angel clay and carved unauthorized spirals, but also managed to get the sacred wheel shattered on the day of rest? The image of his disappointment, colder than the void itself, makes you shudder. Hours crawl by. The crack in the stone doesn't heal. The clay doesn't miraculously fuse. The wheel remains broken, silent, a stark accusation in the holy stillness. You watch the sunlight move across the fracture, highlighting its cruel, clean edges. It feels like a crack in the foundation of the world itself. The void hadn't just tugged. It had struck back, exploiting the sacred pause, the moment of perfect vulnerability. The spiral groove, Adam's defiant signature, ends abruptly at the crack's edge. A sentence cut off mid-word. as the sun begins its descent, marking the slow approach of Havdalah and the end of Shabbat, you notice something else. Deep within the crack, where the sundered star clay meets the fractured stone, tiny pinpricks of blue-white light are gathering. Not glowing flecks, but liquid starlight, beads of luminous moisture seeping from the broken edges of the angel-touched mud. They pool in the narrow fissure, shimmering with an unearthly light, like tears wept by the cosmos itself for its broken axis. The void hadn't just broken the wheel, it had made it weep, and you were the only witness, trapped in the sacred silence, watching starlight bleed from the fracture on the day no work could be done to mend it. The Shabbat silence is a shroud, heavy and suffocating. You sit frozen on a stool, watching starlight weep from the crack in the sacred flywheel. Each luminous droplet gathers in the fissure like liquid sapphire, pooling, shimmering with an unbearable, silent grief. The void didn't just break the wheel, it made the angel-touched clay mourn its own fracture. Panic is a cold stone in your gut. Dawn will bring Bezalel. Dawn will bring judgment. And you have nothing but forbidden clay, an unauthorized spiral, and a shattered axis of holiness bleeding light on the day of rest. As the first sliver of the new moon pierces the workshop's high window, marking the end of Shabbat, the weeping slows. The luminous tears solidify where they touch the sundered stone and clay, forming a brittle, glassy blue seam along the crack. Beautiful, fragile, useless. The fracture remains, merely glazed with celestial sorrow. You touch it. The solidified tears are cold, sharp. They hum faintly, a broken melody. It's not a repair, it's a scar, a testament to failure. Havdalah spices scent the air outside, cloves, cinnamon. The sweet smoke marking the end of holiness and the return of work. The camp stirs. Footsteps approach the workshop. Bezalel, your time is up. Desperation claws at your throat. You scan the dim workshop frantically. Tools? Useless against starcracked stone. More clay? The pit is drowned, the angel clay sundered. Then, your gaze snags on a shadowed corner. Bezalel's ancestor bin, the chaotic repository of discards and prototypes. Buried under bronze shavings, something gleams dully. Not metal. Wood. Dark, dense, impossibly old acacia wood. A fragment, no larger than your palm, its edges charred black, its surface etched with the ghostly remains of hammered gold. Recognition hits like a lightning strike. The first tabernacle, the one consumed by holy fire during Nadab and Abihu's fatal offering. The ark fragments were gathered reverently, but the lesser pieces, the splinters of the holy place's framework, some were saved. Not for reuse, for remembrance. Bezalel kept this one, a relic of sacred failure, a warning etched in charred wood. An insane idea blooms. The first tabernacle failed. Its vessels were consumed, but its wood had borne the unbearable weight of the presence. It had touched the edge of the devouring fire and survived, albeit scarred. It was the ultimate counterweight to void, not formlessness, but survived conflagration. Holy charcoal, you snatch the fragment. It's lighter than it looks, yet dense with memory. The charred surface feels warm, buzzing with a deep, resonant frequency different from the star clay's hum, a bass note to its shattered melody. You hold it near the crack in the flywheel. The solidified blue tears pulse. The charred wood thrums in response. A silent conversation between sacred relics of different destructions. Bezalel's footsteps are at the door. No time for reverence. No time for doubt. You grab a small mallet used for tapping clay into molds. With trembling hands, you position the charred acacia fragment over the widest part of the crack, where the solidified tears form their brittle bridge. It's too big, rough, ugly, a blasphemous patch. You raise the mallet. Forgive me. Tap. The sound is obscenely loud in the quiet workshop. A tiny sliver of the brittle blue seam flakes off. Tap. The charred wood bites into the stone edge. Tap. You feel the vibration travel up the mallet handle. The deep thrum of the acacia meeting the high, fractured whine of the sundered star clay. Sparks not of metal, but of pure, white light, flare where wood meets stone and tears. Asterisk tap. Tap. Tap asterisk. The door creaks open. Bezalel stands silhouetted in the dawn light. He sees you, sees the mallet raised, sees the charred wood fragment pressed against the sacred flywheel's crack. His face is unreadable stone. You freeze, mallet poised. The patch is crude, brutal. The charred wood obscures part of your precious spiral groove. The solidified tears are crushed beneath it, their glow dimmed. But the crack, the terrible, starlight weeping crack, is covered, bridged by a relic of holy fire and divine wrath. Bezalel walks forward, slow, deliberate. He doesn't look at you. His eyes are fixed on the patch. He stops before the wheel. His hand, calloused and stained with celestial ink, reaches out. Not to strike you, not to rip the blasphemous patch away. He touches the charred acacia wood, runs a finger along its charred edge, where it meets the fractured stone. He closes his eyes, feels the vibration, the deep, resonant thrum of the acacia, the fractured hum of the star clay, the crushed whisper of the solidified tears, all mingling beneath his touch. Silence stretches. You hold your breath, the mallet heavy in your sweat-slick hand. He opens his eyes. They hold no anger, no condemnation, a profound, weary sadness, perhaps. And something else, recognition? He taps the charred wood once, firmly. It rings with a clear, deep note. The fire purified the error, he murmurs, almost to himself. The void cracked the vessel. He looks at the patch, then at the sundered star clay beneath it. This. He touches the acacia again, binds a fracture. Not with perfection, with memory. He looks at you finally. The wheel will spin. It will bear the mark of its breaking and its mending. He doesn't ask permission, doesn't demand explanation. He gestures to the wheelhead. Prepare the clay for the new moon chalice. The axis holds. He turns and walks to his workbench, unrolling a papyrus blueprint as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. You lower the mallet, your arms trembling. You stare at the patch. The charred wood, a relic of sacred failure, pressed onto the fracture caused by primordial hunger, sealed over weeping starlight. It's not beautiful. It's not seamless. It's a brutal scar, a kintsugi of the covenant using the gold of holy fire and the lacquer of celestial tears. The spiral groove is partially obscured, but you see it peeking out beside the dark, with Adam's defiance still present, now partnered with the memory of fire that both destroys and purifies. You place a hand on the flywheel. It thrums, a complex, layered vibration. The wobble is gone. The drift is silenced. It spins true, bearing its wounds, its repairs, its layered history of void, fire, and fragile, fractured grace. The wheel is whole, not as it was, as it is, and it is enough. The wheel spins, its song now a complex harmony. The deep thrum of charred acacia binding the fracture, the faint, fractured hum of the sundered star clay beneath, and the muted resonance of the crushed celestial tears. It holds. It spins true. Bezalel's tacit approval hangs in the air like incense. Relief washes over you, sweet and dizzying. You shape the first chalice for the new moon consecration, a vessel for holy oil, your fingers guided by the steady rhythm of the repaired wheel. The clay flows, centered, perfect. You fire it in the small, sanctified kiln, whispering prayers into the flames. When it emerges cool and smooth, its curves are flawless, its walls even as a new moon's edge. Pride blooms. You present it to Bezalel. He runs a critical finger along its rim, nods once. To the council of elders for sealing, he decrees. The oil must not weep. You carry the chalice like a newborn lamb to the elder's tent, heart light. The tent smells of aged parchment, cedar oil, and the sharp, clean scent of authority. 12 elders sit on low stools, their white beards cascading like frozen waterfalls onto robes woven with threads of blue and authority. Elder Nahar, who first summoned you, presides. He gestures to a low table of polished olive wood. Place it. His voice is drier than ever. You set the chalice down. It gleams softly in the lamplight, a vessel born of void defiance, fire memory, and your own trembling hands. An apprentice, younger than you, but radiating solemn importance, steps forward. He carries not a hammer or chisel, but a small, worn leather pouch. From it, he extracts a single, perfect grain of golden mustard seed. The air stills. This is the measure. The seal of the elders requires vessels to hold exactly 100 times their weight in oil, without the thinnest wall permitting even a seed's width seepage. Perfection quantified by a speck of gold. The apprentice places the mustard seed on the chalice's outer wall, near the base. He produces a slender rod of pure copper, polished to a blinding sheen. He holds it horizontally against the seed. His eyes narrow to slits as he peers along the rod's edge, judging the infinitesimal gap between the seed and the chalice's curve. He moves the seed minutely, adjusts the rod. The elders lean forward, collective breath held. The silence is suffocating. You can hear the blood rushing in your own ears. The apprentice frowns. He moves the seed again, fetches a different rod, thinner, repeats the agonizing scrutiny. Minutes crawl by. Finally, he straightens. He looks at Elder Nahar. A discrepancy, he announces, his young voice unervingly calm. Here. He points to a spot near the chalice's shoulder. The wall, it thins by half the width of this seed. A collective intake of breath, not a gasp, a hiss, like steam escaping a cracked pot. Elder Nahar's face hardens into desert granite. Half a seed's width, he repeats, each word chipped from ice. Half, the apprentice confirms, holding up the offending rod and the tiny, damning seed. The accusation hangs in the air, colder than the void's pull. Half a mustard seed, less than the thickness of a fingernail's moon. Invisible to the eye, irrelevant for holding water or wine. But for holy oil, a potential breach, a potential desecration, a vessel almost perfect, but fatally flawed by the most minuscule margin imaginable. Your flawless chalice, born of cosmic struggle and sacred fire, is rejected for being half a seed width too thin. Elder Nahar steeples his fingers. The wheel spins true, he states, his gaze boring into you. The clay is blessed. The vessel is shaped with skill, yet it is imperfect. He pauses, letting the word imperfect echo like a gong in the silent tent. Explain the discrepancy. Your mind races. The star clay, its sundered nature, subtly altering density, the heat of the kiln, a draft, a tremor in your hand on the crucial pull. You have no answer, only the crushing weight of the tiny golden seed, magnified by the grim faces of the 12 elders into a mountain of failure. I shaped it true, you stammer, the words sounding feeble. The wheel was centered. The clay yielded evenly. Yet here, interrupts another elder. Her voice like wind through dry reeds is the measure. She points a bony finger at the rod and seed. The word demands precision. The spirit abhors a near miss. A vessel that almost contains the holy is a vessel that invites seepage, invites corruption. Her eyes, sharp as obsidian flakes, hold no malice, only implacable certainty. Would you pour the anointing oil of kings into a cup that might hold it, or might betray it? The question isn't rhetorical. It's a verdict. The chalice, your masterpiece forged from brokenness and fire, is condemned not for a crack, not for a wobble, but for a whisper-thin variation in its wall. A variation detectable only by the cruel poetry of a golden mustard seed and a polished copper rod. The void hadn't cracked it. The fire hadn't consumed it. It was undone by the unbearable weight of divine exactitude, measured in units smaller than hope. Elder Nahar sighs, a sound like sand shifting in a forgotten tomb. The vessel is unfit, he pronounces. Break it. Return the clay to the kiln's ash heap. Begin anew. He gestures dismissal. The consecration waits for perfection, not approximation. The apprentice picks up the chalice. Your chalice. It feels heavy in his hands, weighted with your sweat, your fear, the echo of angel wings and holy fire. He carries it towards a large mortar of black basalt near the tent flap. The elders turn away, already murmuring about grain tithes. You stand frozen, watching as the apprentice raises the chalice high. For a heartbeat, it catches the lamplight, a curve of perfect potential, flawed by half a seed. Then, he brings it down sharply onto the mortar's unyielding rim. Crack. Not the crystalline snap of the flywheel. A dull, final thud. The sound of perfection shattered by the tyranny of the infinitesimal. Shards of your hope, your skill, your defiance against void and fire scatter across the packed earth floor. The apprentice sweeps them efficiently into a small clay pot labeled unsanctified remains. The golden mustard seed, the tiny golden arbiter of your failure, rolls unnoticed into a corner of the tent, glinting mockingly in the lamplight. Perfection demanded, perfection measured, perfection broken. You stare at the empty space on the olive wood table where the chalice stood. The wheel might spin true, but its creations could still be undone by a measure smaller than a dream. The path to the sacred, you realize with crushing certainty, is paved with shattered vessels and golden seeds of impossible demand. The basalt mortar's dull crack echoes in your bones long after the chalice shards are swept away. The golden mustard seed glints in the dust like a mocking eye. Perfection demanded, perfection shattered. The path back to Bezalel's workshop feels longer, paved with the invisible shards of your failure. The repaired wheel spins, its layered hum, charred acacia, sundered star clay, crushed tears, suddenly sounding less like harmony and more like a dirge. Bezalel glances up as you enter, his gaze sharp. He doesn't ask about the chalice. He sees the emptiness in your hands, the ash-heap dust clinging to your sandals. His silence is heavier than any rebuke. He points to a fresh lump of ordinary, buff-colored practice clay. Again is all he says. The word hangs, a simple, crushing imperative. The practice clay feels dead in your hands, gritty, unyielding, a far cry from the cool, humming memory of the angel-touched mud or even the dense, obedient terra sancta. You wedge it, slamming it onto the spare will head with unnecessary force. Thump. Dust puffs up. You center it roughly, your movements jerky with frustration. The elders measure, half a mustard seed. Burns in your mind. How can hands shaped from this same dust achieve such impossible precision? How can you, who broke the holy wheel and birthed flawed vessels, ever meet that standard? You kick the treadle. The wheel spins. You wet your hands, press into the clay. It resists, pulling against your fingers. You try to force it upwards, envisioning the perfect, seamless walls of the consecration chalice. The clay buckles, wobbles, collapses into a slumped, defeated lump. Like me, you think bitterly. You scrape it off, slam down another lump. Thump, spin, force, collapse. Again and again. The pile of discarded, malformed clay grows beside you. Dust coats your arms, your tunic, the back of your throat. It tastes like despair, like the dry, choking atoma before the breath of life. Bezalel works nearby, shaping delicate flanges for a menorah branch. His movements are fluid, unhurried, a dance of pressure and release. He doesn't force the metal. He invites it into shape. You watch, mesmerized despite yourself, as the bronze yields to his knowing touch, flowing like water under fire. It's not strength. It's listening. Desperation gives way to exhaustion. Your shoulders ache. Your hands cramp. You stare at the next lump of clay, feeling utterly inadequate. The voids pull the Shabbat crack, the elder's golden seed. They all press down, heavier than the stone flywheel. How can you shape holiness when you feel like dust waiting for a wind to scatter you? Then a memory surfaces, not of angels or voids or shattered vessels, of your mother, kneading bread dough in the cool dawn light before the camp stirred. Her hands weren't strong. They were worn, gentle. She didn't pummel the dough. She folded it, turned it, whispered to it. Breathe, she'd murmur, covering it with a cloth. Let it find its strength. And the dough would rise, soft and full, ready for the fire. Breathe. The word lands softly, a cool drop on parched earth. You look at the lump of clay on the wheel, not as an adversary, not as a potential failure, just clay, dust waiting for breath. You take a deep breath yourself, letting the tension seep from your shoulders. You wet your hands not with frantic splashes, but with slow deliberation. You place your palms lightly on the cool, gritty mass. You don't push. You settle. You feel the clay's resistance, its slight unevenness. You kick the treadle gently. The wheel spins slowly, steadily. This time, you don't force it upwards. You cup it. Your fingers cradle the base. You apply pressure, not downward, not inward, but centripetal, guiding the spin, letting the wheel's motion help the clay find its own center. Your touch is firm but yielding, like holding a sleeping child. The clay begins to rise, slowly, tentatively. It doesn't fight. It responds. It breathes. You feel the subtle shifts, a thicker spot here, a thinner spot there. You adjust your pressure minutely, compensating, coaxing. It's not about imposing a shape. It's about discovering the shape the clay wants to be under the gentle insistence of the wheel and your guiding hands. You think of Genesis 2:7 *. Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Formation, then breath, not force, but infusion. The walls rise smooth and even, not by brute strength, but by patient, listening pressure. Your own breathing syncs with the rhythm of the wheel, with the subtle yielding of the clay. The dust on your hands isn't failure anymore. It's the raw material of potential. The lump becomes a cylinder, then gracefully curves inward at the lip. A simple bowl, not a chalice, not yet, but it's centered, it's whole. It holds its shape with quiet dignity. You lift it carefully from the wheel head. It's cool, solid, perfectly symmetrical. No wobble, no hidden thin spots screaming for a mustard seed's judgment. Just good, honest clay, shaped by dust hands finally understanding their partnership with the dust they mold. You hold it up, catching the lamplight on its smooth curve. Bezalel glances over. He doesn't nod, doesn't speak, but his eyes linger on the bowl for a fraction longer than necessary before returning to his bronze. The silence isn't heavy anymore. It's a quiet hum of dust remembering it was meant to hold shape, to hold breath, to hold possibility. One patient, listening rotation at a time. You set the bowl aside to dry, the dust on your hands feeling less like failure and more like a covenant with the earth itself. The simple bowl dries on a sun-warmed stone shelf, its unassuming curves a quiet testament to dust finding its center. You shape another and another. Bowls become cups, cups become small flasks, each one born not from force, but from patient listening to the clay's whispered needs under the wheel's steady hum. The dust on your hands feels less like failure, more like an ancient partnership remembered. Confidence, fragile but real, begins to knit your spirit back together. Then the day arrives. Fresh Terra Sancta clay, blessed and sieved, sits cool and expectant on the sacred wheel. The star-flecked bearing hums its fractured song beneath the charred acacia patch. The new moon consecration looms. It's time. You take a breath deep as creation, wet your hands, and begin to shape the holy oil chalice once more. The elder's tent feels colder this time. The scent of cedar oil and parchment carries an edge of frost. The 12 white beards are icebergs drifting in a sea of solemnity. Elder Naha's gaze is flint. The polished olive wood table waits, an altar of judgment. You place the new chalice upon it. It glows softly in the lamplight, elegant, symmetrical, its walls flowing from base to lip with the grace of a desert spring. Born not of desperation, but of breath and balance. The young apprentice steps forward, leather pouch in hand. The air thickens. You force yourself to breathe. Asterisk in, out. Like centering clay, asterisk, he extracts the golden mustard seed. Its tiny, perfect form catches the light, a miniature sun of impending verdict. He places it carefully against the chalice wall, near the curve of the shoulder, the very spot where its predecessor failed. Your heart thuds against your ribs. He selects a copper rod, thinner than a reed, polished to cruel perfection. He holds it horizontally, aligning it with excruciating slowness. His eyes narrow to obsidian slits. The silence is a physical weight. He peers, adjusts the seed by a fraction of a hair's breadth, adjusts the rod, peers again. Minutes stretch into an eternity measured in hammering heartbeats. The elders are statues. Bezalel, standing near the tent flap, is a shadow against the daylight, utterly still. You focus on the grain of the olive wood table. Asterisk breathe. Like the clay breathed asterisk. The apprentice straightens. He doesn't frown. He doesn't smile. His face is a mask of pure measurement. He looks at Elder Nahar. "The wall," he announces, his voice clear in the crushing silence. He pauses. Your breath stops. Here, he points to the spot, exceeds the standard thickness. Another pause. The word exceeds hangs, strange and unexpected, by half the width of the seed. A collective rustle, not a gasp, a ripple of profound surprise, like wind stirring frozen reeds. Elder Nahar leans forward, his flinty gaze sharpening. Exceeds? By half a seed. Disbelief wars with ingrained protocol in his voice. Half, the apprentice confirms, holding up the rod. He demonstrates, placing the seed against the rod's edge, showing the minuscule gap between rod and chalice. The wall is thicker, stronger. Silence descends again, heavier and stranger than before. Thicker, not thinner. You stare at your chalice. Did the mindful centering, the patient listening, somehow build more substance into the walls? Or was it simply that by not forcing, you avoided the subtle thinning caused by strain? Elder Nahar strokes his beard, the sound like dry leaves scraping stone. He looks from the chalice to you, then to Bezalel's shadowed form. The other elders exchange glances, their expressions unreadable. "The measure," states the reed-voiced elder woman finally, "demands not less than the standard. It does not forbid more." She taps a bony finger on the table. A wall thicker by half a seed is not a flaw. It is... She searches for the word. Asterisk fortification, starred. Elder Nahar's eyes remain fixed on the chalice. The surplus half seed of clay represents something alien to the council. Margin. Safety. It wasn't the razor's edge of exactitude they demanded. It was a tiny buffer against uncertainty, a shield against the seepage they feared. He looks up, his gaze meeting yours. It holds no warmth, but the glacial disapproval has thawed, replaced by a stark, grudging assessment. "The vessel," he pronounces, each word measured like the seed itself, meets the seal. "It is acceptable." He doesn't say perfect. He says acceptable. The word feels like a pardon. The apprentice carefully lifts the chalice. He doesn't carry it towards the basalt mortar. He carries it to a smaller table draped in blue linen, where a silver flask of consecrated oil rests. He places the chalice beside it, ready for the sealing ritual. The golden mustard seed is returned to its leather pouch, its terrible power momentarily suspended. You feel lightheaded. Relief isn't a wave. It's a slow, deep thaw spreading from your core. You glance at Bezalel. He gives the faintest nod, not of congratulations, but of acknowledgement. The method held. He turns and slips silently out of the tent, back towards the hum of the sacred wheel. As you leave the elder's tent, the sunlight feels warmer. The dust under your sandals feels like familiar ground. You look back once. The chalice sits on the blue linen, catching the light. It's not just a vessel for oil. It's a vessel that carries the weight of half a mustard seed more. The surplus wasn't waste. It was the space created by patience, the buffer woven by trust, the tangible result of breathing with the dust instead of wrestling it. The void pulled, the fire scarred, the measure demanded, and the chalice, born of listening hands, answered not with bare adequacy, but with a quiet, generous surplus, a half-seed's width of grace pressed into holy clay. You walk back to the workshop, the dust on your hands feeling less like a covenant with the earth, and more like an invitation to build with a little extra kindness, starting with yourself. The sealed chalice rests on Bezalel's workbench, its thicker walls holding the elder's grudging approval, like an unexpected gift. Relief is a warm stone in your chest. Yet, the star clay bearing beneath the charred acacia patch hums a fractured song, a reminder of wounds that linger. As dusk paints the workshop in violet shadows, Bezalel places a small alabaster dish beside the chalice. Inside, brittle shards of solidified celestial tears, The luminous blue glass, wept by the sundered angel clay, glisten like frozen starlight. For the glaze, he states, his voice devoid of inflection. The oil vessel must not only hold, it must reflect. He walks away, leaving you alone with the impossible, transforming cosmic sorrow into sacred luster. The tears are brittle, cold. They resist the mortar and pestle like fragments of frozen sky. You grind slowly, reverently, feeling the sharp edges bite into the stone bowl. Blue-white powder gathers, finer than pollen, shimmering with a trapped inner light. It smells of ozone and deep space. Reflect, Bezalel said. But how? Raw, this powder would scatter light, not capture it. Glaze requires fusion, a marriage of mineral and fire. You recall Deborah's dye vats, the alchemy of mordants and heat transforming mud into Tyrian purple. Glaze is similar. Silica, flux, color, and transformation. You raid the workshop stores, a pouch of fine white silica sand, crushed Sinai quartz, a clay jar labeled natron, Wadi natron, its contents like coarse salt. The flux, the catalyst for melting. You mix 3 parts silica, 1 part natron, 1 part shimmering tear dust. The blend is ethereal, glowing faintly in the dimming light. You add holy water drop by drop, stirring with a cedar stick. It thickens into a luminous blue-white slurry, cool as moonlight on your skin. It should melt into clear glass with blue flecks, maybe. But will it reflect? Or just glow like a dead star? Doubt creeps in. You dip a shard of ordinary pottery into the slurry. It emerges coated in liquid starlight. You fire it in the small test kiln. The smell is strange, not wood smoke, but ozone and hot stone. When cool, the shard is coated in a rough, bubbly crust. Milky blue, dull. The trapped starlight seems smothered. Failure grinds sharper than the tears. Bezalel inspects it silently, taps it with a bronze probe. It clicks dully. The fire consumed the light, he murmurs. Too harsh, too hungry. He walks away. The unspoken truth hangs. Fire purified the acacia, but it devours the tears. That night, you dream of the riverbank, not of winged footprints, but of Lamech's voice. Asterisk, the clay remembers asterisk. You jolt awake. Remembers. The tears solidified where they touched the sundered star clay and the fractured stone. They weren't pure celestial matter. They were a fusion. Earth, star stuff, and the memory of breaking. Your glaze was pure tears. It needed context. Earth to anchor the light. At dawn, you grind a handful of the original Terra Sancta clay, the sacred silt untouched by angels or voids, into the finest dust. You add it to a new batch of slurry, 2 parts silica, 1 part natron, 1 part tear dust, and now 1 part Terra Sancta dust. The mixture changes. The luminous blue deepens, becoming richer, less frantic. The holy earth dust binds the star stuff, turning the slurry from icy moonlight to deep twilight. You stir. It feels balanced, whole. You dip the test shard again. This time, the coating is smoother, deeper. You fire it, but lower the heat. Slower, gentler. Not a forge's roar, but a kiln's patient embrace. The smell is different. Warm earth and opening flowers, with a hint of distant lightning. When cool, the shard emerges transformed. The glaze is flawless, a deep translucent blue, like the sky moments before true night. And within it, the Terra Sancta dust and tear dust have fused into countless microscopic, radiant points, not scattered flecks, but a suspended galaxy. It doesn't glow on its own. It holds light. Lamplight strikes it, and the surface comes alive, reflecting the flame not as a mere image, but as 1,000 captured, shimmering stars. It doesn't just reflect, it enchants. Bezalel returns as you hold the shard, turning it in the morning light. Tiny constellations dance across the workshop wall. He stops, takes the shard from your hand. He doesn't hold it to the light. He feels it, runs his thumb over the smooth, cool surface. Then he looks at the deep blue chalice waiting on the bench. He looks at the bowl of twilight slurry. He dips a clean brush into the radiant mixture. Without a word, he hands it to you. His eyes hold no instruction, only permission. Reflect. You approach the chalice, the oil vessel, the holder of sacred anointing. Your brush hovers over its pure, buff-colored curve. This isn't decoration. It's encapsulation, sealing the vessel's strength within a skin of remembered tears and holy earth, transformed by gentle fire into a mirror for the divine. You take a breath, steady as the wheels hum. You touch the brush to the chalice's shoulder. The luminous slurry flows, smooth and cool, embracing the clay. You paint slowly, deliberately, stroke by stroke, turning the vessel on its stand. The deep blue spreads, swallowing the humble clay, revealing the trapped galaxy within its depths. The chalice disappears, replaced by a miniature, rotating night sky. A vessel forged from void and fire, thickened by grace, now clothed in the captured tears of the cosmos and the memory of sacred earth. It stands on the bench, no longer just pottery. It's a reliquary of light, a silent psalm spun from dust, tears, and the alchemy of patient, gentle flame. Bezalel watches, his reflection flickering in the deepening blue. He gives a single, slow nod. The void had cracked it. The fire scarred it. The measure demanded. And now, the weeping light finally understood, embraced it. The vessel was ready, not just to hold oil, to hold wonder. The glaze requires 49 watches to dry, Bezalel decrees. The deep blue star-vaulted oil chalice rests in a dustless stone niche, like a paused night sky. In the waiting hours, he tosses you a heavy goatskin scroll tied with hippopotamus leather. Asterisk, the Sacred Potter's Archive, an Abrahamic-era manuscript. Master Chapter 18. Asterisk, you untied the leather cord. Dust and ancient olive oil scent the air. By lamplight, cuneiform script marches like ants across the page. Illustrations of pottery wheels intricate as star charts. You turn to the bone tab marked 18 and touch abrupt roughness. The vellum ends here, its edge charred and curled like a butterfly's wing licked by flame. Chapter 18, vanished. The cuneiform halts mid-sentence at the scorched edge. If facing a wound beyond healing, take the ink beyond crumbles to carbon dust. You trace the fracture, not moth-eaten irregularity, but a precise burn. Someone excised this chapter. Flipping the brittle page, chapter XIX's opening stings your eyes. Thus Jacob's wheel, though lame, yet turns. Jacob, the patriarch who wrestled the angel, his wheel was lame. Your fingers chill. Your own wheel's wound, patched with charred wood from the first tabernacle, coincidence, or 1,000-year echo. Lamp oil crackles. You lift the scroll against the light and gasp. Phantom letters press through the burn. Ghost text from the missing page. You rush to the stone slab, grind lapis lazuli into oil, and smear the blue paste onto damp clay. Pressing the scorched vellum onto the slab, you scrape gently with a mussel shell. The burn reveals its cipher. Illustration: Jacob wrestling the angel at night. A pottery wheel tilts, spokes bent like human bones. 3 lines emerge. The wound eternal lies beyond wood or stone. Take dust from beneath the wrestler's knee. Mix with blood of the covenant. Shape into God's counterweight. Hang it at the fracture's heart. You stare at dust beneath the wrestler's knee. The soil of Peniel, where Jacob wrestled God, and blood of the covenant. Abraham's circumcision sacrifice, Moses' Sinai covenant wine. The scroll trembles at its burnt edge, as if sealing forbidden knowledge. Night watch clappers echo outside. Second watch. You hide the clay tablet, fingertips stained lapis blue like stolen night. The charred acacia patch on the wheel pulses faintly in the dark. It was never the cure, only a bandage. True healing waits in the ash. Dust from the struggle and blood of the oath, forged into a weight to hang at the crack's core. Moonlight claws up the scroll's scarred edge, its shape now a coiled wing. The lapis stain on your fingertips feels like a brand. The phantom text from the burnt scroll burns in your mind. Asterisk, dust from the wrestler's knee. Blood of the covenant. Asterisk, the charred acacia patch on the sacred wheel hums against your palm. A bandage, not a cure. Conviction hardens. You must go to Peniel, the place where Jacob wrestled God and limped away blessed. You plead your case to Bezalel, clutching the clay tablet, bearing the revealed cipher. He studies the ghostly script, the diagram of the lame wheel, his face unreadable in the lamplight. Finally, he nods. Once. Go. Take an empty jar. Bring back the dust. The blood. He pauses, his gaze heavy, will be provided. He hands you a small, thick-walled terracotta flask. For the dust. Nothing more. The unspoken warning hangs. Asterisk, don't mix them yet. Don't presume. Asterisk. Dawn finds you at the camp's edge, a water skin heavy on your back, the terracotta flask cradled carefully in a padded sling against your chest. The desert stretches west, a vast ochre sea under a sky bleached pale by the climbing sun. Penueli's 3 days hard walk. No caravan route, no friendly oasis. Just scrub, rock, and the memory of a patriarch's desperate struggle. The first day is fire. The sun hammers down, turning the air into a kiln's breath. Sand grits between your teeth, coats your eyelashes. Your sandals scuff the endless gravel, each step kicking up little puffs of dust that seem to mock your quest. You seek sacred dirt, drowning in the profane kind. The terracotta flask bumps against your ribs, a constant reminder. Dust from beneath the wrestler's knee. What does that even look like? Just dirt? Or soil imprinted by divine weight? You imagine Jacob's knee grinding into the earth, sweat and blood mingling with the dust as he held the angel, demanding a blessing. Did the ground remember that touch? Or is it just ground? The second day brings wind, a hot, gritty sirocco that whips your cloak around your legs and stings any exposed skin. You wrap your headscarf tighter, squinting against the sand-laden gusts. The landscape blurs into a monochrome haze. Doubt insidious as the sand creeps in. The burnt scroll, the phantom text, the charred wood patch. What if it's all coincidence? What if chapter 18 was destroyed because it was wrong? Heresy disguised as revelation? The weight of the empty flask feels suddenly foolish. You stop, sheltering behind a skeletal acacia. The wind howls. You fumble for the water skin, your fingers clumsy. As you drink, a sudden, stronger gust rips the headscarf from your grip. It tumbles away, a scrap of blue swallowed instantly by the tan fury. Panic spikes. Your headscarf. Practicality wars with symbolism. It shielded you. Now it's gone, carried towards the horizon like a discarded prayer. You stare after it, feeling exposed, vulnerable. A sign? You shake your head, gritting your teeth. Asterisk, dust and blood. Dust and blood. Asterisk, you press on, the sun burning your uncovered neck. Late on the third day, the land begins to change. The endless gravel flats give way to low, weathered hills. The air, though still hot, loses its biting edge. You climb a rise, muscle screaming, the terracotta flask a lead weight against your heart. And then you see it, Penuel. Not a mountain, not a shrine, a shallow valley nestled between worn hills. Unremarkable, quiet. A few stubborn thorn bushes cling to the slopes. A dry wadi snakes through its center, its bed littered with smooth, water-worn stones. It looks ordinary, disappointingly so. Where was the scorched earth? The lingering aura of the divine struggle? You stumble down the slope, your tired feet slipping on loose-gree. The silence is profound, broken only by the sigh of the wind over rock and the crunch of your footsteps. You reach the wadi bed. This is it, the place. You sink to your knees near the center of the valley, where the wadi bends. The ground is hard-packed silt, baked by the sun. You run your fingers over it, cooler than the surrounding air. Smooth, just dirt. You close your eyes, trying to summon the image. Jacob, exhausted, terrified, magnificent, pinning the angel at dawn, his knee grinding into this very earth, demanding. Asterisk, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Asterisk, the air around you feels still, waiting, not charged with power, but heavy with memory. A place where heaven touched earth with violence and grace, leaving only silence and hard-packed silt. You take out the terracotta flask, remove its stopper. Your hands don't tremble now. This isn't about spectacle. It's about faithfulness, about gathering the unremarkable ground that witnessed the extraordinary. You scrape at the silt with your fingers, not digging deep, just skimming the surface. The dust is fine, pale ochre. It trickles into the flask. No sparkles, no hum, just dust. The dust beneath the wrestler's knee. You fill the flask halfway, sealing it carefully. The weight in your sling shifts from emptiness to potential. As you stand, a glint catches your eye near the base of a thorn bush. Half buried in the silt, blue fabric, your lost headscarf, tattered, dust-stained, but unmistakable. It hadn't vanished into the desert. It had been carried here, ahead of you. A coincidence? A wind swim? Or a quiet confirmation that the path, however gritty and doubtful, was the right one? You pick it up, shaking off the dust. It feels like an answered question, whispered not in thunder, but in the sigh of the wind over Penuel's silent stones. You tie it back around your head, the familiar fabric a shield against the setting sun. The dust is gathered. The flask is sealed. The long walk back to the sacred wheel and the waiting mystery of the covenant blood begins. The terracotta flask of Penuel dust sits heavy on Bezalel's workbench, its ordinary ochre contents belying its sacred provenance. Beside it rests a smaller vial of deep crimson glass, stoppered with gold, Bezalel's provision, the covenant blood. Not Abraham's sacrifice, nor Moses' Sinai wine, but a distillation, the priestly anointing oil, aged 7 years in acacia wood, infused with myrrh so precious it bleeds crimson in the vial. The scent is overwhelming, sacred decay and impossible sweetness. The burnt scrolls command echoes. Asterisk mixed dust with blood. Shape God's counterweight. Asterisk Bezalel places a miniature bronze crucible over a low, pure olive oil flame. The furnace of a heart, he murmurs. Not for melting metal, for marrying earth and oath. He gestures to the flask and vial. Begin. Your hands are steady, cleansed in water from Miriam's well, but your pulse thrums against your ribs. This isn't pottery. This is alchemy deeper than Tyrian dye or star-tier glaze. You pour the Penuel dust into the warm crucible. It lies inert, pale against the dark bronze. Then, unstoppering the blood vial, the scent blooms, heady, ancient, piercing. One drop. It falls onto the dust like liquid garnet. Nothing happens. Just a crimson bead on ochre silt. Bezalel nods. Patience. The oath remembers its covenant. You add another drop, and another, slowly, deliberately. On the 7th drop, the dust shivers. Not a physical tremor, but a visible deepening of color, a subtle coalescence. The crimson doesn't soak in. It wraps each grain, staining it a rich, burnt sienna. The mixture darkens, warming in the crucible's gentle heat. It begins to emit a low, resonant hum, different from the star clay's fractured song or the charred acacia's deep thrum. This is a pulse, slow, steady, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Stir, Bezalel instructs, handing you a slender rod of pure, unalloyed silver, the moon's bone, he calls it. Gentle, like coaxing a dream. You touch the silver rod to the mixture. It resists, thick as cooled honey. You stir clockwise, following the imagined path of the celestial spheres. The pulse strengthens. The burnt sienna mass swirls, thickening further, pulling away from the crucible sides. It's no longer dust and oil. It's a dense, clay-like amalgam, glowing faintly from within with a deep, russet light. It feels alive under the rod, warm, elastic, humming with contained power. The scent shifts. Penuel's dry earth now married to the myrrh's sacred decay, creating something new, the fragrance of a sealed promise, of struggle sanctified. Enough, Bezalel says. He lifts the crucible from the flame with bronze tongs. The amalgam within holds its shape, a molten-looking orb radiating warmth, and that deep, resonant pulse. Shape it now, before the memory cools. He places a tiny, polished hematite anvil before you, the bedrock of Sinai. Beside it, a miniature silver hammer, its head shaped like a flattened olive leaf. Not force, intention. Define its weight. You scoop the warm, humming amalgam onto the cool hematite. It holds its spherical form, pulsing softly. The scroll's words guide you, God's counterweight. It must balance the void's hunger. It must hold the memory of the wrestler's tenacity and the covenant's binding grace. You raise the silver hammer, not to strike, but to press. You bring the olive leaf face down onto the orb, not crushing it, but defining its top into a perfect, flat plane. Thud, the pulse vibrates up the hammer handle. The plane is flawless. Turn. Press the opposite side. Thud, another plane. A perfect disc begins to form. Now the edge. Gentle taps with the hammer's curved side, turning the disc slowly on the anvil. Asterisk tap. Turn. Tap. Turn. Asterisk each tap compresses the amalgam. Each turn perfects the circle. The pulse intensifies, syncing with your rhythm. The disc shrinks slightly, denser, harder. Its russet glow deepens, concentrating. You feel less like a smith, more like a midwife, coaxing form from potent potential. Finally, it's done. A disc no larger than a child's palm, perhaps half an inch thick. Smooth, cool to the touch despite its inner warmth. Perfectly circular, perfectly flat. Its surface isn't polished metal. It's like solidified, luminous earth, swirling with subtle patterns of darker umber and veins of deep crimson where the covenant blood embraced the dust. It thrums steadily in your hand, a miniature heart forged from sacred struggle and eternal promise. The pulse isn't loud, but it resonates in your bones, a counter rhythm to the void's silent pull. Bezalel takes it. He holds it up to the lamplight. The inner glow illuminates the whorls and striations, like a tiny, captured landscape of Peña Valley. He nods, a profound satisfaction, softening his usually stern features. The counterweight, he pronounces, the heart to hang at the fracture. He places it carefully on a square of undyed linen. Let it rest. Let the oath set deep into the dust. He looks at the humming disc, then at the sacred wheel across the workshop. Its charred patch a stark reminder of the wound. Tomorrow, he says, his voice low with anticipation, we give the fracture its heartbeat. The disc pulses on the linen, a small, steady light in the workshop gloom. It holds the grit of Jacob's struggle, the binding power of the covenant, and the focused intention of your hands. It's not a repair, it's a declaration. The void cracked the wheel. Fire scarred it. The void tugs still. But now, a heart forged from dust, an oath beats steadily, waiting to be suspended at the wound's core, a living counterweight to the hungry dark. The silence in the workshop is filled not with absence, but with the quiet, powerful thrum of a promise made solid. The counterweight hangs suspended within the flywheel's hollow core, a rusted heart forged of Peña dust and covenant blood, pulsing against the charred acacia patch. Bezalel places his palm on the stone rim. Spin. His command is barely a whisper. You press the treadle. The flywheel turns. Slowly at first, then gaining momentum. No shudder. No drift. Only a deep, resonant thrum that harmonizes with the counterweight's heartbeat. The star clay's fractured hum softens, absorbed into the rhythm. The workshop air vibrates, not with tension, but with alignment. Lamplight flickers across the wheel surface, catching the spiral groove you carved months ago. It spins like a galaxy bound by gravity. Dawn's first light filters through the workshop canvas as the wheel still spins, untouched for hours. Its motion is perpetual, self-sustained, a stone galaxy orbiting its rusted heart. Levites pause outside, drawn by the resonant hum seeping into the morning stillness. Children press ears to the tent wall, giggling at the sleepy mountain song. Even the goats cease bleating when the pulse sinks with their grazing rhythm. Bezalel observes, a chisel frozen mid-stroke over a menorah branch. It remembers, he murmurs, not to you, but to the wheel itself. Not just clay, time. You approach cautiously. The flywheel surface is cool, but the vibration travels up your arm like a living current. You place an unfired cup on the wheel head. No pressure, no guidance. The clay rises on its own, walls thinning and swelling in perfect symmetry, guided by the wheel's resonant intelligence. It's no longer a tool. It's a loom weaving time and matter into cohesion. A potter's hands become witnesses, not conductors. At high noon, the council of elders arrives. Nahar's eyes narrow at the self-spinning stone. Sorcery, he hisses. Bezalel shakes his head. Covenant. He lifts a newly formed jug, flawless, fluid, its curves echoing the wheel's pulse. No seal needed, he declares. Its walls hold the measure of eternity. He fills it from Miriam's well. Water arcs into the vessel's throat, swirling in a vortex that mirrors the wheel's motion. Not a drop spills. Not a ripple escapes. The water settles, still as a midnight pool. Nahor extends a trembling finger toward the jug's rim. The apprentice steps forward, golden mustard seed in hand. Before he measures, the water surface dips beneath the seed's shadow, a liquid bow to the weight of the infinitesimal. The elder retracts his hand as if burned. The vessel honors the measure, he breathes. No rod is lifted, no verdict spoken. The silence is reverence. That night, under a new moon sliver, the consecration begins. You carry the star-glazed chalice to the tabernacle's inner court. The high priest pours the oil, thick, amber, fragrant with pomegranate and myrrh. As it fills the chalice, the trapped galaxy in its glaze ignites. Constellations swirl in the oil's depths, Orion's belt etched in liquid light, the Pleiades shimmering near the rim. The wheel's hum echoes through the courtyard, harmonizing with the Levites' chant. Asterisk Bereshit, asterisk, in the beginning, the oil doesn't weep. It glows. When the ritual ends, you return to the workshop. The wheel still spins, its pulse a quiet lullaby. You sit before it, your back against the cedar platform. Fatigue washes over you, not the ache of muscles, but the relief of a storm-survived voyage. The charred patch, the spiral groove, the suspended counterweight, they are no longer repairs. They are the wheel's testimony. Its scars sing of void and fire, dust and divinity. You close your eyes. The resonance seeps into your bones, tuning your heartbeat to its rhythm. Somewhere in a valley called Peniel, dust remembers. In a vial, covenant blood hums. And in this tent, a stone wheel spins the first melody of a mended creation. The wheel's eternal hum has become the camp's heartbeat. You shape vessels not for Bezalel's scrutiny, but for the rhythm itself. Bowls that echo spiral grooves, flasks that resonate with the counterweight's pulse. Then, one moonless night, a shadow darker than the tent's corners fills the doorway. Abraham stands there, wool cloak dusted with road grit, eyes holding the weight of mountains, yet unmoved. The Lord requires an altar at Moriah, he says, voice like stones grinding deep earth. But this, he places a lump of raw, iron-rich clay on your workbench, smelling of distant thunder and crushed pomegranate rinds, is for an offering unwritten, shape it unseen. The clay is cold and dense, flecked with mica that glints like frozen tears. Abraham's instructions are sparse, asterisk small enough to carry, strong enough to endure fire, hollow enough to hold silence, asterisk no sacred geometry, no cherubim, just essence. He leaves as silently as he came, the stars his only witnesses. You lock the workshop shutters. Working by a single clay lamp, you need the Moriah clay. It fights back, gritty and stubborn, staining your palms the color of dried blood. This isn't terra sancta or angel dust. This is covenant clay, earth that will witness unthinkable obedience. You feel its tension, the metallic tang on your tongue like lightning about to strike. Centering it on the sacred will feels like balancing a trembling heart. The wheel's hum shifts, lower, solemn, a dirge woven into its eternal song. As you open the form, the clay resists thinning. It wants weight, substance, a vessel built for burden. You coax it upward slowly, fingers reading its reluctant yielding, hollow enough to hold silence. You sculpt walls thicker than any chalice, tapering to a narrow neck, sealing the interior darkness. The shape emerges, an unadorned urn, barely larger than your fist. Its curves austere as a desert monolith. Its surface drinks the lamplight, reflecting nothing. Firing it requires secrecy. You wait until the camp sleeps, then kindle the small sanctified kiln behind Bezalel's tent. Not with olive wood, but with gnarled tamarisk branches Abraham left, wood that thrives in salt and thirst. The flames burn blue-green, whispering secrets as they consume the twisted limbs. The urn sits alone in the furnace core, a shadow against the eerie light. Hours crawl. The kiln's heat paints your face, while night insects chant dirges. You recall Abraham's eyes, not fear, but a terrible, still acceptance. This urn isn't for oil or grain. It's for the ashes of a promise. For the silence after here, I am echoes off barren rocks. The kiln's glow deepens. Cracks appear in the tamarisk ash, revealing embers like watching eyes. At dawn, the fire dies. You let the kiln cool until the stars fade. When you unseal it, the urn sits transformed. The iron-rich clay has vitrified to a deep, volcanic black, seamless and cool. No glaze, no star-trap light, just absolute darkness given form. It feels heavier than stone, humming with a low, absorbed vibration, the echo of the kiln's blue flames and the weight of unwritten sorrow. You lift it. The surface is smoother than water, colder than moonlit rock. It holds the hollow perfectly, a chamber crafted for silence. Abraham returns before first light. He takes the urn without a word, his calloused fingers tracing its obsidian curves. He weighs it in his palm, his gaze distant, fixed on an unseen mountain ridge. He nods once, a gesture that holds lifetimes. Tucking it into his cloak, it vanishes against the dark wool, becoming another shadow. The altar receives what is given, he murmurs, not to you, but to the fading night. The vessel holds what remains. He turns and walks east, toward the rising sun and Moriah's shrouded peak. The workshop feels emptier. The wheels hum momentarily, subdued. You touch the space where the urn rested. Your fingers come away clean, but the memory of its darkness lingers, a sacred void shaped by human hands, waiting to be filled by the terrible, faithful silence of asterisk. Here I am. Asterisk. The Moriah urn's darkness lingers like smoke in the workshop long after Abraham vanishes eastward. You scrub red clay from under your nails. Moriah's iron-rich stain resists even holy water. Routine returns, wedging terra sancta, coaxing amphory from spinning hum. Then the tent flap bursts open. Not Bezalel, not an elder, Esau. He smells of sweat, damp fur, and crushed juniper berries. His beard glistens with stew droplets. Jug, he booms, voice raw from desert air. Big one, for hunting. He slams a steaming goatskin pouch on your workbench. Venison stew sloshes, scarlet oil blooming across raw clay like a blood moon over pale earth. Careful, you yelp, snatching a half-formed water jar from the crimson tide. Too late. The stew, thick with lentils, red beans, and fatty goat meat, splatters across 3 drying storage pots. Ochre clay drinks the scarlet oil greedily, blooming into violent Rorschachs. Esau grunts, wiping his beard with a hairy forearm. Happens. Still hold water. He pokes a stew-smeared pot. His finger leaves a greasy canyon in the soft clay. Frustration boils. Weeks of careful drying ruined. The pots aren't sacred, but they're for Sarah's grain stores, meant to outlast lean seasons. Now they wear Esau's impatience like war paint. The clay's soft, you protest. The oil will rot it. Esau shrugs, already tearing open the stew pouch. Clay's dirt. Dirt eats oil. Make more. He slurps directly from the pouch, crimson broth dripping onto his boots. The scent, cumin, garlic, vinegar, mocks your panic. You grab clean rags, blotting furiously. The oil doesn't lift. It sinks, staining deep, binding itself to the clay particles. The pale surfaces now bear permanent continents of rust red. Disaster. That night, firing the salvage pots feels like cremation. You place the stained ones reluctantly in the kiln's cooler edge. Flames lick the shelves. When dawn cracks the kiln door, the unstained pots emerge buff gold and sturdy. The stew-splattered ones? Your breath catches. The oil hasn't rotted. It's transformed. Where Esau's gluttony bled scarlet, the clay now shines with a deep vitrified crimson, smooth as garnet, hard as flint. Not a stain, a glaze, richer than madder root, deeper than Tyrian purple. It's pooled in crevices like molten rubies, feathered at the edges into sunset gradients. The accidental continents are now precious islands in seas of pale clay. Bezalel runs a thumb over a crimson curve. Iron, he murmurs, from the beans, or the meat's blood. The vinegar acted as flux. He taps the glossy surface, fired hotter than intended. Forge a bond. He looks at you, a ghost of amusement in his eyes. Asterisk, asterisk, Esau's red asterisk, asterisk. Useful for marking unclean vessels or making common clay priceless. Word spreads. Women bringing water jars pause, eyeing the crimson pots. Does it wash off? Leah asks, skeptical. You demonstrate, scrubbing with sand, vinegar, even hyssop paste. The red deepens, gleaming. Like Jacob's birthright stew, she snorts, but her fingers linger on the gloss. Days later, Jacob himself slips into the workshop, eyes darting like a cornered hare. A small dish, he whispers. 4 tokens. In Esau's red. He avoids your gaze. He'll never know it's from my hand. You shape the dish, deliberately splattering terra sancta with bean thickened broth. Fired, it emerges a deep, deceptive crimson, a vessel colored by a brother's hunger, destined to hold the birthright token stolen with a similar, desperate craving. The flaw becomes currency. Fishermen commission red-rimmed net weights. Blood sinks faster. Shepherds order crimson-tipped staff handles. Scares wolves. Even the Levites request small red dishes for altar ash. A silent joke about Esau's profane origins sanctified. You keep one stew-splattered pot for yourself. It holds your bone needles. In lamplight, the crimson glaze glows like bank coals. Esau's haste, his hunger, his messy vitality, all trapped in eternal glassy red. A permanent reminder, holiness isn't always planned. Sometimes it's splashed onto common clay by a man who traded eternity for a mouthful of stew, staining the ordinary with the indelible, fiery mark of human appetite. You drop a needle into the pot. It clinks against crimson. The sound echoes, part laughter, part lament, for the brother who stained the world with his hunger, and the clay that made it beautiful. The crimson glaze pots gleam like scattered coals in the workshop, trophies of Esau's unintended alchemy. You're threading a bone needle with flax for mending a sack when a shadow falls across your lap. Not Bezalel's sharp silhouette, but Rachel's, trembling as if caught stealing moonlight. Her voice is a moth's wing against the wheel's hum. Father inspects the flocks at dawn. He counts everything. She presses a bundle of raw, undyed wool into your hands, still warm from the sheep. Make it unseen. Make it unstealable. Before you speak, she flees, leaving the scent of crushed almond blossoms and desperation. The wool is coarse, still clinging to burrs and the tang of pasture. Unseen, Laban's eyes missed nothing, a chipped hoof, a lean lamb, a daughter's wandering gaze toward Jacob's tent. Unstealable, not for its worth, but for its witness. You unwind the bundle by lamplight. Nestled within the greasy fleece, 12 tufts of scarlet wool, impossibly soft. Not madder-dyed. Esau's red, the sacred accidental glaze reduced to pigment, painstakingly rubbed into raw fibers. Rachel's defiance, distilled to crimson threads. No loom would hide this work. Laban patrols the weaver's tents at night, counting threads like coins. Your tools, a forked tamarisk branch, 2 smooth river stones, and the bone needle. You knot the undyed wool's end to the branch's fork. The first stone anchors the tension. The second becomes a shuttle, wound with a single strand of scarlet. Click-clack. Not the loom's rhythm, but the beat of a hiding heart. You weave not on a frame, but suspended between knee and branch, fingers dancing in shadows. Each crimson cross thread is buried deep within the dun-colored warp, invisible unless held to light. A secret ledger of stolen glances, woven into something useful. A headband to keep sweat from Rachel's eyes as she tends flocks she cannot inherit. The scarlet wool fights, stiffened by the glaze's residue. It rasps against the undyed strands, threatening to snap. You dip your fingers in olive oil, smoothing each crimson thread like coaxing a confession. Click-clack. The pattern emerges, not chevrons or blooms, but a staggered code. 3 dun threads, 1 hidden scarlet, 2 dun, 1 scarlet. A rhythm only Rachel's fingers would know to seek. Jacob's voice drifts from the sheepfold outside, chanting Genesis blessings over stubborn rams. your needle pulls the scarlet through. His words weave into your stitches, and your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth. But this dust is crimson. This descent is hidden. Dawn bleeds at the tent flap. You knot the last thread, severing it with your teeth. The headband looks ordinary, drab, slightly lumpy from hurried tension. But held toward the rising sun, a constellation of scarlet sparks winks within the weave, a buried river of Rachel's resolve. She returns as the camp stirs, eyes wide with sleepless fear. You press the headband into her hands. For the sweat, you murmur, nothing more. Her fingers find a raised scarlet knot near the end, the marker. She folds it quickly into her sash, the hidden threads aligning over her heart. Laban counts the wool at full moon, she whispers. By then, this will smell only of sheep and sun. She touches your wrist, her fingertip warm as a sparrow's breast. The unseen things, they hold the truest weight. She slips away, the headband's secret thrumming beneath her robe. Another covenant woven in stolen hours and Esau's unintended crimson. A map only the lost can read. The desert years unfurl like a sun-bleached scroll. You mend fishing nets with Esau's red-stained twine, shape children's bowls from clay that remembers nothing of angels. Then a caravan arrives, smelling of Nile mud and papyrus. Among the bundled linens, a shattered Egyptian cup, lapis blue glaze clinging to curved shards, thrust into your hands. Fix this, commands a trader, dropping copper rings as payment. For a dreamer's ransom. You fit the pieces, no pastoral scene, but cows lean as famine, wheat stalks devouring each other. Pharaoh's nightmares drunk from daily. Joseph's cell is smaller than a kiln, air thick with the scent of stale bread and unwashed stone. He takes the reassembled cup, fingers tracing the glued fissures where lean cows dissolve into bloated ones. The fracture is the message, he murmurs. His eyes, too old for his young face, lift to yours. Bring me Nile silt, the kind that coats drowned roots, and 7 grains of barley from a blighted harvest. You walk the riverbank at dusk. The Nile breathes out damp, fecund air, a world away from Sinai's dust. Mud sucks at your sandals, black as a widow's robe. You scrape the thickest sludge, where reeds rot and water whispers secrets to drown things. The blighted barley grains, scabbed with rust-colored fungus, nestle in a fold of linen like diseased pearls. Joseph kneels on the cell's cold floor. He mixes the silt with brackish water in a palm-sized dish, kneading it into a thick, dark paste that smells of decay and fecundity. The river remembers what the land forgets, he whispers. With a reed stylus, he paints over the cup's glued cracks, not hiding them, embellishing. Along the fissure between fat cows and thin, he draws Nile currents swirling downward. Over the cannibal wheat, he etches locust wings in negative space, silt scrubbed away to reveal pale clay beneath. The blighted barley grains he presses wet into the silt where wheat stalks meet. 7 dark pustules. Fire it, he orders. Low heat. Let the mud dream itself into stone. You build a pit fire behind the guards' barracks, fueled by driftwood and whispered psalms. The cup nestles in embers, silt crust blackening. Hours pass. Stars wheel. When dawn pales, you fish it out with sticks. The silt has fused into a matte, obsidian skin, seamless over the glaze. The lean cows now swim in dark currents. The fat ones stand stranded on arid cracks. The locust wings seem to vibrate against the lapis blue. The barley grains are embedded like cursed jewels. Joseph holds it to the cell's high window. Sunlight strikes. The silt-black lines drink the light, but the exposed clay locust wings glow, translucent as scarab wings. See, his voice trembles. The fracture shows what the whole vessel hides. Famine lives in the river's memory. Plague hides in the harvest's heart. He turns the cup. The blighted barley grains cast long, leprous shadows. Pharaoh will see the brokenness and understand the pattern. 3 days later, guards haul Joseph to the palace. He carries only the cup. You watch from the slave quarters as he disappears into gilded halls. Later, whispers cascade like falling grain. Asterisk, the Hebrew slave named the 7 years of plenty, the 7 years of blight. He read the Nile's memory in a mended cup asterisk. The trader returns, pressing a heavy linen bag into your hands. Payment doubled. Inside, among the rings, a single shard of pharaonic faience, blue as the Nile at noon. From the cup you fixed, he says. Joseph said, give the mender this fragment. Some truths stay sharpest when broken. You hold the shard. Its edge could draw blood. On the back, silt still clings in the grooves. Nile mud dreaming in exile. You place it beside Esau's red pot, holding your needles. A mended cup saved a kingdom. A shard holds the sharpness of revelation. Brokenness, you realize, isn't always mended. Sometimes it's made into a map. You run your thumb over the silt-filled groove. The river remembers. So does the clay. The Nile's silt still clings under your nails like a dark prophecy when Pharaoh's seal arrives. A scarab impressed on papyrus thicker than hide. Not a summons, an order. Joseph, vizier of all Egypt, demands vessels. Not for dreams or oil, but for grain. Mountains of it. Design storage jars, the scribe reads, his voice nasal with authority that defy the blight. Let no weevil, no mold, no damp breath of the river touch Pharaoh's lifeblood. The papyrus specifies dimensions vast as thirst. 10 cubits high, walls thick as a warrior's arm, necks narrow as a serpent's throat. An impossible geometry for clay. Behind the scribe, donkeys strain under sacks of strange, grayish powder. Asterisk, asterisk, Nile diatomite, asterisk, asterisk. Crushed skeletons of ancient river algae. Mix this in, the scribe commands. The dust of drown time. The diatomite feels wrong, gritty, yet feather-light, smelling of deep water and forgotten graves. It drinks water greedily, turning slurry into a gray, spongy monster that resists shaping. Your first attempts slump, great, sagging bellies collapsing under their own weight before the rim is thrown. Bezalel observes, silent. He traces a finger through the gray sludge. It wants air, he murmurs, like lungs, not a fortress, a sieve. His words unlock it. You abandon thick walls. Instead, coil long ropes of coarse clay, rough as tree bark. Build the jars skeleton tall and thin, ribs exposed like a basket's weave. Between the ribs, press panels of diatomite clay slurry, thin as dried river reeds. Pierce the still soft panels with a bronze locust leg, its natural barb creating microscopic channels, not holes. The jar emerges, a towering ribbed sentinel. Its surface a landscape of gray, porous skin stretched over a bony clay frame. It looks fragile, vulnerable, like something the desert wind might crumble. The firing is a vigil. Kiln heat must be low, slow, a fever, not a forge. Too fast, the diatomite explodes into pumice. Too hot, the ribs warp. You stoke tamarisk coals for 3 days, the air shimmering with heat and doubt. When the kiln cools, the jars stand transformed. The gray skin has vitrified into a glassy, brittle shell, crazed with a million microfractures, not flaws, but pathways. The ribs glow terracotta red, hard as flint. You pour Nile water onto one jar's porous shoulder. It doesn't bead. It vanishes, drunk instantly into the micro-labyrinth, evaporating outward through the fractures before it can seep inward. The jar breathes. Joseph arrives unannounced, robes white as bleached linen, a single golden sheaf pinned at his shoulder. He circles a jar, knuckles wrapping the ribbed clay frame, asterisk thok asterisk, then the brittle gray skin, asterisk tink star. He dips a hand into a sack of barley, lets the grains cascade against the porous surface. They bounce off, dry, whispering like sand. No dust clings, no moisture kisses them. He scoops a handful of grain, holds it close to the jar's neck. Breathe, he commands. You watch. Tiny plumes of vapor, invisible unless caught in lamplight, sigh from the microfractures, the trapped breath of the grain itself, gently drawn out and released. Passive ventilation. The dust of drown time, once riverbed algae filtering water, now filters air, keeping death at bay. He fills the first jar. Barley cascades like a golden waterfall, whispering against the porous walls. It settles, cool and dry, filling the towering vessel. without a single husk clinging to moisture. Joseph places his palm flat against the gray skin, feels the faint, almost imperceptible exhalation. Like the ribs of Adam, he whispers, not to you, but to the vessel, holding breath, holding life. He orders 1,000 more. Granaries rise across Egypt, not dank tombs, but forests of breathing clay sentinels. Inside, mountains of grain sleep, cradled by ancient river skeletons and Genesis dust, their decay exhaled through 1,000,000 invisible sighs. The jar beside you stands filled, silent, yet alive with a quiet respiration of preservation. Pharaoh's lifeblood is safe, held not by brute strength, but by the wisdom of pores, the memory of drowned things, and the fragile, brilliant skin of a vessel that learned to breathe. The desert swallows Egypt's breath. Pharaoh's breathing granaries shrink behind you like fossilized giants, as Sinai's ochre ridges rise ahead. Joseph's parting gift hangs heavy at your neck, a carnelian bead drilled through with a hair-fine hole, whispering, even stone learns to breathe. Beside it, the Nile shard's edge still threatens blood. Your donkey's hooves kick up dust that tastes of covenant and crushed diatom skeletons. When the tabernacle's linen peaks pierce the horizon, the air thrums, not with river damp, but with the sacred wheel song, pulling you home like a lodestone. Bezalel meets you at the camp's edge. His eyes skip over the donkey's empty panniers, fixing instead on the carnelian bead at your throat. The bead sings, he states, fingertips hovering near its vibrating surface. A different key, Egyptian sand in its lungs. Behind him, the workshop's familiar cedar-scented gloom hums, deeper now, woven with the penule counterweight's pulse and the star clay's fractured memory. You place the Nile shard on his workbench. Its silt-filled groove glints beside Rachel's hidden scarlet thread spool. Bezalel picks it up, runs his thumb along the sharp edge. Truths too sharp for whole vessels, he murmurs. You carried it well. He gestures to the wheel. Its stone rim spins untouched, perpetual as the constellations. Show it what the river taught you. You need terra sancta, Sinai's dust, thirsty and familiar, but fold in a palmful of diatomite smuggled from Memphis. The dust of drowned time. The mixture lightens, porous as pumice. Centering it on the wheel, you feel the difference immediately. The clay yields like damp parchment, hungry for air. You throw the walls thin, Egyptian thin, ribbing the interior with coiled clay arteries. With a porcupine quill, Joseph's locust leg substitute, you pierce microchannels through the leather-hard surface. Not for grain, for sacred incense. Bezalel watches, a chisel forgotten in his hand. You hollow out holiness now, he observes. Let it breathe. Firing is a negotiation. Sinai's kiln scorns Egypt's low heat. You bank olive wood coals under a layer of tamarisk, Nile and Negev in uneasy alliance. The vessel emerges transformed. Terra sancta fired to amber translucency by diatomite's ghostly silica bones. Held to lamplight, it glows like petrified honey, its micropores etching shadow lace on the workbench. Aaron himself comes for the consecration. High priest's robes brush the workshop dust as he lifts the vessel. Lighter than a sparrow's skull, he marvels. He fills it with frankincense tears. Smoke coils upward, then fractals. Instead of a single plume, 100 gossamer threads spiral from the micropores, filling the tent with intersecting helixes of myrrh and oud. The smoke doesn't rise, it dances, a lattice of fragrant breath. The incense breathes, Aaron whispers, entranced, like lungs praising. That night, the wheel's song changes. The penule counterweight's pulse sinks with a carnelian bead's vibration at your throat. Asterisk, asterisk, Sinai resonance, harmonizing with Nile wisdom, asterisk, asterisk. You shape a new chalice, ribbed and porous. No elders demand measurement. No golden seed touches its rim. You fill it with water from Miriam's well. Through the micropores, air sighs inward. The water stays cool, alive, tasting of deep aquifers and wind over dunes. A cup that drinks the sky. Bezalel places it unannounced on the tabernacle's bronze laver. Levites pause, hands dripping. They drink. Their eyes widen, not at flavor, but at the thirst. How the cup seems to quench deeper than water alone. Laughter rings from the weaver's tent. Rivka holds up a new loom shuttle, its handle drilled with diatomite aerated clay. Lighter, she crows. My wrist doesn't sing dirges anymore. You touch the carnelian bead. Joseph's voice echoes. Asterisk. What good is eternity if bread molds by morning? Asterisk, the sacred wheel spins, its spiral groove gleaming. The charred acacia patch holds. The counterweight pulses. And now Sinai breathes, through vessels pierced with Egyptian wisdom, through incense that dances, through water that remembers the wind. You pick up a shard of flawed terra sancta, once destined for the heap. With the Nile fragment's edge, you carve a single microgroove along its curve. Toss it into the laver. It floats, sighing a miniature song. Even brokenness, you realize, can hold air, can rise. The desert night exhales. The wheel hums the tune. You sleep. Moonlight pools in the breathing chalice on your workbench. The water within, sipped from Miriam's well hours ago, stays cool, its surface trembling not with thirst, but with the wheel's distant resonance. Close your eyes. Feel the vibrations travel up the stool legs, through your spine. The penule counterweight's steadfast drum. The star clay's mended melody. The spiral groove's celestial spin. They weave into the carnelian bead's warmth against your collarbone. Egypt's pragmatism, Sinai's covenant, one rhythm. Outside, the camp sleeps. The breathing granaries of Memphis guard Pharaoh's gold. Here, a diatomite-pierced oil lamp flickers, its wick drawing air through micropores, burning cleaner, brighter. All vessels learn to breathe now. Your fingers brush the Nile shard. Its silt holds river ghosts, Joseph's prison whispers, the weight of dreams mended into maps. Beside it, Rachel's scarlet thread coils, still crimson, still hidden. Love and defiance spun into wool. The desert wind slips through the tent flap. It carries the scent of tamarisk smoke from the kiln, frankincense from the tabernacle, the iron tang of distant rain. The wind itself is a vessel, carrying dust from Penuel's valley, diatom skeletons from the Nile, the breath of sleeping flocks. You need not dream of wheels or voids tonight. The mended axis turns. The counterweight holds. The fractures, once weeping starlight, now channel air. Stretch out on the packed earth. Let your own breath deepen. In, out, sinking with the workshop's pulse. Your ribs are your vessel. Your lungs, the sacred pores. Sleep comes as sinking into cool water, into amber resin, into the silent spaces between the wheel's rotations, where all broken things, shards, scars, stolen birthrights, find their buoyancy. The carnelian bead rests warm over your heartbeat. The Nile shard gleams in moonlight. The wheel hums its lullaby of dust and breath and grace unbroken. All is held. All is holy. All breathes.